fine. We'll talk about it. So enjoy your time in the ether webs.
Hi, folks. Thanks for joining us. Wonderful. Michael Hacker, I see you. That's great. Hey, very cool.
Michael.
See a bunch of faces and names I recognize. Very cool. So I'm not sure, I guess, how many are doing this, but I see Matt's there. Yeah, great.
Liz may be slowly adding some more in as people figure out how to do things. So,
well, why don't I start off with a few introductions of some of the folks I mentioned early on, and I was probably, spewing out a lot of syllables per second, so I'll try to slow this down a little bit and work from there. But ITEEA in the last few years has really focused on this Standards for Technological and Engineering Literacy project. I didn't mention at the beginning, and I would like to mention now, and I'm a little bit remiss I didn't, that the brainchild behind this initially is the thought was partnered with our Council for Technology Teacher Education group, our CTETE group, and Tom Levlin put the proposal together from the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, and he's the principal investigator. The co-PIs are Marie Hopeful from Appalachian State University and myself, and Phil Reed, our current president, was also, he's not a co-PI, but he was as important, if not more important, as part of that lead in the writing team component. Also on this call, we have our incoming president-elect, that's Dr. Virginia Jones. And we also have our past president, Michael Sandell from Minnesota. And did I miss anyone that's on the group? We also have Dr. Michael Hacker on the group, and we're involved in that project I did mention during the 5-minute portion, which is the Project Excite. That's the AP Computer Science Principles course that's being written specifically with a technology and engineering educator component written into the current Beauty and Joy of Computing curriculum that we have using SNAP. And it's a very exciting project as well. And then I also want to mention that another juggernaut for us has been the Engineering for All project that came out of Hofstra with the Engineering by Design program. So it's been very exciting. So we're open to you for questions, and Phil and Virginia and Michael, feel free to jump in as well as we're going through this, but we're wide open. Maybe I should look at the chat just to see if anybody's chatting. I wonder if you're in a breakout room when you chat, does it just go to the room or does it go everywhere? That's a good question. Oh. And by the way, that resources tab that looked all blank on the website when I was showing it, it is all blank. There's a issue with our resources area on the link on our website right now. So we have our IT person working on that. Apologize. And when that comes back up, he's going to notify me. Oh, it's back. I just got the text. It's back. It's back. So we should be there. If there aren't any questions immediately, why don't I go ahead to that? I'll share my screen. Screen 2. I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to refresh this page. And there's the resources tab. So the one thing I wanted to share before was on this resources tab, things like the FAQ are there, the marketing resources, the benchmark crosswalks to other standards. And that's where
it's Steve. Yeah, I can't see your screen, Steve.
I did. I guess that one last step of hitting that share on the bottom right, when my brain, I have a tendency to blow right by that. I apologize. So the Standards for Technological and Engineering Literacy page has the 3 tabs on it. The overview, which has the download of the final version. The print version is going to be ready for purchase in about 2 weeks. The download of the STEL executive summary is here as well, and we do have print versions of those available. And then the resources tab was the one that wasn't working. There was a brief glitch, and this is where the FAQ is, the marketing resources, the benchmark or crosswalk standards, the verb matrix, the benchmarks compendium by grade band, and the rationale. So there was a question about the NGSS, and we have a crosswalk ready to move right here on these standards. We are developing, but it's going to take probably through the summer to get it to a final version, an interactive website for the standards that will have the core standards, the practices, and the contexts in an interactive mode where you can look up. So for instance, let's say there's a practice of optimism, like Liz was mentioning earlier, and there's a standard, let's say it's the impact standard of technological and engineering practices that you want to, or standards that you want to put in there, and you want the middle school grade band. You'll have a tool to be able to put that in, hit go, and the whole thing will pop up in front of you with the resources that are there in the standards and where they link. We're also in the process of developing exemplars. We're looking for what we're calling STEL specialists to help lead this project in its delivery as we're working through. So if any of you are interested in that, feel free to shoot an email to ITEEA@itea.org and we'll put that in there. So comments, questions?
Steve, are there any states that have more or less adopted this or talking about adopting this besides us?
There are. Right now, it is actively working to do that. COVID-19 put it on a little bit of a hold there. I just got a note from the state supervisor, Scott Nichols. His official name's Charles, but he goes by Scott. He just emailed me yesterday that that's on a little bit of a hold, but they're actively moving in that direction. The state of Pennsylvania has contacted us. They're in the process of updating standards, so they're looking at it right now. And we're going to be doing a release to the different states in terms of adopting these down the road. So hopefully we'll keep that conversation moving from there.
Are those other states planning on adopting them just as is as you have them, or are they making state adjustments to them to fit their state specifically?
It's so early. I don't know the exactness of that. So I know Maryland's just trying to adopt them as is. Pennsylvania, just because I was there for 30 some years in schools and teaching, I'm pretty certain they're going to, if they do adopt them, they'll adopt them in generality, but then do some specific adaptations that they want to fit. That would be my guess. Looking at the way NGSS has been adopted and some states not, it's definitely a political line they follow.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, even those that don't officially adopt it are aligning themselves pretty closely to the NGSS. We're hoping a very similar process happens with the STEL standards. I'm not blowing smoke here when I say this. I feel very comfortable going from that industrial arts to technology education, now technology and engineering education over my lifetime in this field, defending how these standards have come about and the standards, the way they're presented right now. And I think you'll see exemplars coming out that match up with what's really happening in the world that you teach in. And that's the key, that it helps teachers defend what they're teaching and give them ideas on moving it forward.
Yeah, there was a question in the chat about, you know, how do they apply to New York? I can speak a little bit about Virginia. So Virginia, our CTE director is contacted ITEEA about a preliminary order of a copy for every technology and engineering teacher in Virginia. And we already have a set of state adopted courses in Virginia. So what the State Department of Education will do is they'll take the standards, and as those competencies for all of those courses get revised, those competencies will reflect standards for technological and engineering literacy. So the state has a regular schedule that each year they update so many courses, and you know, up to this point they've been based on standards for technological literacy. Now they'll be based on the newer STEL document.
As that relates to New York State, though, how are these standard recommendations falling in line or alignment with the CTE state proposed standards? Career and technical education. is there a crossover? Is there a blending? Are the two working together?
Phil, I'll start this one off, but if you or Virginia or Mike want to chime in, feel free to do so. You've asked an extremely challenging question. Okay, that's first. No, it's a good thing because we have to address it head on. ITEEA has a very broad view of what technological and engineering literacy is supposed to be. There are specific areas that I think some states zone in on more than others. So for instance, if it's the CTE area and you're in Pennsylvania, we in Pennsylvania, technology and engineering has no connection to CTE, zero. So it's weird, it's very different. So in Pennsylvania, this answer is going to be different than in maybe New York if you are part of CTE and you are receiving, let's say, Perkins funds. Virginia, they receive Perkins funds. And so forth. So from that perspective, when we wrote the standards for technological and engineering literacy, to be honest with you, they fit technology and engineering educators perfectly, but they also fit, and it was purposeful and intentional, that other CTE fields, agriculture, marketing, business, family and consumer science, T&I, etc., can also fit within these standards. The way that you look at those those core 8 with those 8 practices taught through any of those contexts help the CTE fields fit what they want to do there. So if you look at agricultural and biotechnological fields and activities, they fit in our standards. But those 8 core can fit across any of those CTE areas, to be honest with you.
That's probably the most direct answer I've ever gotten. I'm a teacher certified in Pennsylvania as agriculture and in New York as tech ed. And at no point has anyone in New York been able to tell us, other than the blue book, what the standards are in tech ed. So I think that's a very interesting perspective. Thank you.
In New York, they haven't been updated in quite some time, so hopefully we'll be able to implement these. Just before we get kicked out of the room, though, in about 15 seconds, we're all going to get sent back to the general room. So just hang on there for a minute, and if you have any other questions later on, you can always reach out to Steve and ITEEA.
And feel free to shoot them to ITEEA@itea.org, and we'll address them. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Steve.
Good job, guys.
Yeah.
Welcome back. You're back in the main room. Everyone's coming. Still have people in breakout rooms.
Awesome. Thank you for being so considerate about your mics. We really appreciate that.
Cool. Everyone's back. Awesome. I love traveling through the interwebs. It's pretty cool. Hope you enjoyed your chat in the breakout room. Hopefully you met some cool people, heard some great things, got some questions answered. Caitlin just shared with us in the chat a post survey. We would absolutely adore if you took that post survey. Our results from our last survey were really informative to help make this one happen. We are looking to do another session sometime in the future, knowing that school is ending in a few weeks and everyone's kind of tired. So we're excited that you joined us here today. Anything else, Caitlin?
Nope, I just dropped the link one more time. We really hope that you check us out on the NYSTEEA website. All the resources will be posted in a few days. Again, the session was recorded. All of the resources that our presenters shared will be uploaded to that website as well. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. We know that all of us are short on time at the end of the school year. So thank you so much to our presenters for sharing some information on what they've been doing. And definitely make sure that you keep on reaching out to your peers. We are here for each other. You know, tech ed community is pretty tight, so make sure you keep that going. And thank you again so much for your time. So sorry that we ran a little bit over today, but it was great content. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And we hope to see you again in either a couple weeks, either at the end of June or after the 4th of July. We were kind of in discussions whether or not, you know, we wanted to do it in a couple weeks or, you know, at the beginning of July. So thank you again. We'll stay on for a few more minutes if you had any lasting questions, but that concludes our second Tech Ed Teacher Talk. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Exciting to see you all.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Steve.
Yeah, thank